All right, Tyler, what's going on? You got a hand for us?
Yeah, I do. It's a 2-5 hand. We're playing seven-handed, and we're 1800 effective.
Okay, where's this played
Um,
out of?
th this is just a home game.
2-5,
Um,
1800 effective. Okay,
yeah,
home game. Okay.
and this game is routinely straddled. So the straddle is on this hand, so we're playing 2-5-10.
Okay.
Um, so the straddle is not a button straddle. It's under the gun. So the the under the gun makes it. He opens to 30.
Okay.
And next to act calls,
Okay.
and then I'm in the cutoff, and I
Mm-hmm.
have pocket jacks, jack of spades, and the jack of diamonds,
Okay.
and I make it 105.
So three bet to 105. So people basically been opening to 30 with, is this a mandatory straddle or just a sometime straddle?
It's just a sometimes straddle.
Okay.
It's probably straddled, 60 to 70% of the time.
So
Sometimes it's not straddled,
so
but
30, I mean, with a call in there, it's a tad on the small side. I mean, you're not even going 4x. I could easily see making this 120 to 130. You are in position. Just a little sort of subtle thing of note.
yeah, I mean, I agree. I could definitely, yeah, for sure, I could go bigger. Um, So it folds around, and under the gun and the original caller, they both call. So we're going three ways to the flop.
So both call, and it looks like the pot is like maybe 320, something like that. So you've got a
That's right.
double flat in there, meaning that the guy called and then called again. Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So we go to a flop. It's 7-5-4 with seven of spades, five of diamonds, four of spades.
Seven of spades, five of diamonds, four of spades. Okay. Well, obviously this board is connected, but it's not like quite as bad as say like 8, 9, 10, right? Or 7, 8, 9 with say like, I mean, 8, 9, 10 wouldn't be that bad for you with jacks, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Some of these low cards, I mean, you're not really going to, shouldn't really see a straight here. Yeah, I mean, occasionally you might see some sets, but anytime there's a connecting board where there's no possibility of straights, and most of the time there shouldn't be a whole lot of two pair here. Now, if this is a home game, maybe someone's playing 5-4 suited, but I think you can see where I'm going with this.
Sure.
If you can take out the two pair and you take out the straights, and sometimes even the small pairs aren't played from up front, then it's really not that bad of a board. It's
Sure.
definitely not going to be a board where I'm going to be checking a whole lot, especially with jacks that needs protection in this
Sure.
configuration.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't. Yeah, yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, and you said there's not a lot of two pair combinations. I will say the under the gun player opens very wide. Like it would not surprise me if he shows up with like 7-5 off here. Um, he just I don't you take that for what it's worth, but yeah, he
Well,
he
I
just
mean,
he plays very wide.
that's interesting because this is something that I want to add to my game and bring into the training. And I know there's a couple of guys that have actually are going to help me who are in the Crush Light Poker community. It's a skill sometimes to node lock these scenarios in solvers. And what node lock means is that when you start putting in ranges that are far from optimal, how that affects the hand. I mean, off the
Right.
cuff, what I would say though is that if someone's going to be playing 7-5 off, then they are just as likely to be playing offsuit broadways that are called for a three bet. So they're way
Sure.
more likely to miss as well. So I think what the
Yeah.
theory reflects is that it just means that you're going to be betting with more of a frequency, but for smaller to reflect that. If somebody can have these way out to lunch deviations, just have so many misses that you can get away with betting smaller. Whether this guy has 7-5 off, of course, theory would go he should never be calling a suited connector from up front, especially with the guy behind him. But
Right.
it
Sure.
is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so they both checked to me, and I bet 150, and under the gun player calls, and the other player folds.
So UTG calls and +1 folds. And what I would say about that is that if UTG did have two pair, I feel like there would be some sort of raising going on here. Maybe not all the time, but two pair is vulnerable. It's the most
Sure. Yep.
common hand that you'll see raised by a lot of recreational opponents. You're not going to
Yep.
usually see 7-5 flatted here with a guy left on this particular board. So you sort of took this in between sizing. he should be stronger with the guy behind him, but it doesn't sound to me like this guy's ever really folding a pair. He's certainly not folding eights or nines, given your, you know,
No, yeah, definitely not.
description. Or maybe, I mean, hands with a seven have a straight draw in it and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
now it looks like it's like 620.
Yep. 620. That's what I got.
Okay.
No, about 660. Is that what I got? About 660.
Oh, I have 320, whatever. I mean,
Oh yeah,
we'll
no, no,
call
no.
it
You're right.
620.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No,
Okay.
yeah, 620.
Hmm.
Okay. So the turn is an offsuit king. We'll call it the king of hearts. It does not complete, the spade draw, the
Yep.
front door for spade draw,
Yep.
and it doesn't put a back door. So the under the gun player checks again.
Hmm.
Um, and I had a question about my sizing here on the turn because that king kind of, I guess, is a better card for my range versus his range,
Hmm.
but I don't know if he's necessarily he could definitely be thinking like, oh, if like he was bluffing on the flop, that king could have hit him, and now he's got me. If he was making a call with like a seven, or like you said, like pocket eights or pocket nines, so right or wrong, that kind of made me want to bet smaller so I wouldn't lose him,
Yeah. I mean,
if
it's
that
that
makes sense.
no, that it makes perfect sense. It also makes it, I don't, these types, you see a lot of overbetting and stuff on turns, in a lot of different situations, but it's not. I would go so far to say I'm not 100% sure, but I'm fairly confident that it wouldn't actually be on a board like this. It would be more on when the board doesn't contain straights and it's disconnected and it's draw heavy, and then you have a high disconnected brick. Like if it was like 9-4-5-2 suit and then a king came, allowed to bet large because he has to still sometimes continue on. I think that the king is very disconnected here, and unless the guy's got king X of spades here, you still have the lead, but your hand does need some protection. So I would probably take a 1/3 sizing here. Sometimes, like if you're in a single raise pot, you might run into a guy in the big blind who defended having some sort of, turning some sort of kings up or having like king six. But that really, I mean, that would be really far out to lunch, right? In a 3-bet pot. But if he didn't have you on the flop, the only thing that the king is going to do in this spot to put him ahead is just if he has king X of spades. So, I mean, I think
Right. Sure. Yep. Yep.
I think going for 200 to 250 is perfectly reasonable here.
Okay. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that's exactly what I did. I mean, I also thought like those pair and straight draws would would obviously call. They would actually probably call a bigger bet, which is kind of why I was a little torn. But yeah, I did bet 200, and he decided to call.
All right.
Um, so now we got about a
1020.
thousand. Yep, 1,020 going to the river,
Uh-huh.
and the river is the nine of spades.
So the nine of
So
spades and the front door comes in, right?
the front door comes in. Yep.
Okay.
And now he leads for 275.
So UTG bets 275. So, I mean, here's the thing. As you can, if you've listened to a lot of call-in here, you're getting a really good price. So when I get a
Yeah,
really good
really good.
price, I like to call. I mean, the pot's going to be right around 1,300, 275 for you to call. So you're getting like over 4-1 here.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest with you, like I've seen people take a block sizing here. It's not necessarily correct, but people will block here for showdown on the spade. Like, let's say he had tens or eights. He doesn't want to face like a huge bet, and he knows that you can't really even raise him. You know what I mean? Like if you had pocket kings here, you can't even raise, right?
Uh,
You can't really raise, right? With the
yeah,
front door
no,
spade
probably.
coming in.
Yeah,
So
right.
so it kind of prevents that large bet. But at the same time, I mean, it would be one thing if he came out and bet 700-800. That would be really interesting because then he's really saying I've got a flush. And
Yep.
and then he'd have to turn something into a bluff here, right? And the reason why he'd have to turn something into a bluff is because he'd have to have something calling flop and turn, especially with the guy behind him on the flop. So he'd have to literally be turning something into a bluff, like a hand like say 6-5 or something like that, 6-5 suited, right?
Right.
But here, given the pot odds, I'm definitely going to call. And I would probably, if it was 7 800, man, it would be a, again, the 9 doesn't really change a whole lot. I mean, 6 8 was already there. I
6 8
mean,
was already there. Yep.
so I guess you could say that maybe given the
Like
characteristic, he could have like 7 9 or pocket nines. But
sure.
still,
Yep.
I still think that with this block sizing, I think this is just an easy. This is
Yeah.
I think this is a call.
Like when he does show up with bluffs, what do you think his bluffs are on this board? I mean, that was why I was so torn because with the
I don't think,
if he has a random six, more than likely it's going to be paired. And I was just sitting there. I was trying to find the bluff, and I couldn't really come up with
but I don't think that this
many.
is. But what I remember what I said right off the top is I don't think this is always a bluff. I think this is a
Yeah, right.
block a lot of times. It's just a bet of with tens.
Just to get the showdown.
Yeah, just to get the
Yeah,
showdown, something like, they don't really know what to do. So, I think that I would call some people in the live chat saying, what would you do here with like ace king with the ace of spades? I think that that's a spot where, yeah, you block the nuts, but you have so much showdown value against a lot of this blockage type of range. You don't need to turn your hand into a bluff. Now, somehow, like if you had started a bet with like ace queen with the ace of spades and you were like, well, I'm going to run a spade bluff because we said the board wasn't really all that bad, right? We're going to run a stiff ace of spades bluff. And then you get this really good double barrel turn card. Then at that point, sure. Like ace queen with the ace of spades is a lot better of a raise than ace king with the ace of spades here. Because I think you beat some of
yeah,
this block range here.
right. Okay. Well, yeah. So I did not do that. I ended up folding. I just pictured a flush. Like, I pay this bet off so many times, and they keep showing me flushes. So I decided to fold this time. Um, and it ended up being a bad decision. He asked me, "Do you want to see it?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to see it." He showed Ace Six of Hearts. So he did end up taking that weird, like valuey looking bluff, um, and it got me.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm a huge fan of the sizing by your opponent. I do think that he should probably bet larger
Yeah,
to represent what he's trying to represent and give you a worse price because, again, it's a situation where personally, I think it's a rather easy call for this sizing. But if he goes 7 800, then you're put in a much, much difficult spot. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
right,
So,
right.
no,
All
I
right.
I appreciate the call.
Yeah, thanks for taking it.
Thank you very much.